Hello everyone, this is Tamara, your courtroom companion, and in today's video, we're going to talk about narcissism and their use of the silent treatment in relationships. We're also going to talk about why they use it. I'm going to give you 3 strategies for how to not let it negatively impact your life, and then I'm also going to kind of give to you a couple of examples from my own experiences with how silent treatment shows up in a relationship, in an intimate relationship. But as always, the views that I express here are my own. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. I am just someone who has lots of experience with a previous partner who displayed strong narcissistic tendencies, but was never formally diagnosed with narcissism. And so I'm just here sharing my own personal journey with you. Before we jump into the content, please do hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload content. So let's jump right in. It's my opinion that not all emotional abusers are narcissists, but all narcissists are emotional abusers. So that may or may not be helpful to you. I heard that along the way in my own journey, and it really did help me to clarify that narcissists are abusers. And so I use that frequently to kind of make sense of what happened to me. So maybe that'll be helpful to you as well. Now, we're going to get into the why do narcissists use the silent treatment. So number one, it's very common among narcissists to use the silent treatment to punish their victim. And so they do it frequently. If you've been involved with a narcissist who gives you the silent treatment, and most of them do, it can almost feel like death, especially if you live in the same house with them. It can be extremely destroying to your soul, because if narcissists typically will choose someone who has a lot of empathy and a lot of caring about them. And so if you've been given the silent treatment and you're an empath, you're going to want to fix things. You're going to want to make sure that everyone in the house is, living in harmony. And so you'll tend to want to fix it. And that's what the narcissist feeds on, your desire to fix it. And then when you desire to fix it, they use it even more against you. So the more you try to stop it, the more they enjoy it. They use it as a means of controlling you. They feel very powerful when they're deciding when the communication will take place between the two of you. They really enjoy that sense of power over the person that they're not speaking to. And if you're involved or with a narcissist who's giving you the silent treatment and you're on the other end of that, it's going to feel very unfair to you, especially when they are using manipulation, lying, and rewriting of history as a way of justifying why they're giving you that treatment. So there's a lot going on behind the silent treatment, especially if they've kind of told you why they're doing it. Let's say they say to you, yeah, I'm not talking to you. Look what you did the other night. And you're going to go, wait a minute, that didn't happen. Or that's not what I said. That feeds that even more. So whenever you try to fight against it or to explain yourself or whatever, that's just like a gold mine for them. They love it. They would rather have bad attention than no attention. So the fact that you're maybe pining after them or trying to fix it or trying to resolve it, that they love that, because the more you go up to do that, the more they can put you down. It's like this terrible, terrible cycle that you'll find yourself in. So not only is the silent treatment bad, it's what happens when you try to fix it that's also bad. The silent treatment can also last for hours, days, weeks, months. It can literally last a very long time. And I'm going to give you some strategies later on to help you kind of overcome this and not let it really negatively impact your life. So not only can it last a very long time, it can show up in different ways in different relationships. So they could, for prior commitments, they might not show up for those prior commitments. If you've got a special event, say a birthday or a special work event or something like that, they just won't show up. They and you won't know they're not going to show up. You might be in the silent treatment with them, but you may be under the impression that when it's time to leave for this special event, that they're just going to get ready and get in the car with you. I would say that most of the time they're not going to do that, because they're still trying to punish you. They have not yet said it's okay to make things better. When they're done punishing you or think they're punishing you, that's when it will stop. So they won't show up for things they're supposed to show up for. They might also sort of demand an apology for some perceived slight that they said you did, and you might not have done it, and that in order to make the relationship better, that person may require that you apologize for something you didn't even actually do. You might find that you are trying to constantly say, that's not what happened, here's what happened, and it's like this constant cycle. And so that could be a requirement for your narcissist for you to apologize. So just be aware of that's something that is very common in a narcissistic relationship. So I'm going to give you an example of how that showed up for me in my previous relationship. So we were invited over to another couple's home for dinner, a couple of weeks in advance. It was a church couple that we went to church with. And on the day of, I knew he wasn't speaking to me. He hadn't been speaking to me for days, but I just made the assumption he was going to get in the car. As I said before, I just kind of made the assumption he would get in the car and go with me. And he said, no, I'm not going. And I said, but we can't not show up. He said, why not? And so I was like, because they've prepared. We haven't given them any advance warning that we're not coming. So I'm sure they've cleaned the house and prepared a dinner. It's like, I'm not going. So I wasn't going to not show up, which made it very uncomfortable because I had no reason to tell them why he wasn't showing up. So I went anyway, and I did not make an excuse. I said, I don't know why he's not coming. He just said he wasn't going to come because he didn't give me a reason, and I wasn't going to make one up for him. I was at the point in the relationship where I was not going to cover anymore. So I didn't. And I think they understood that I had no control over the situation, and we had a great time anyway. So it was okay. But it's very disheartening when you have plans to have your narcissist not show up, and you have to kind of make excuses. I would say don't make them. So that's just kind of like one of the many examples of when the silent treatment kind of showed up for me. And if you've had other experiences where the narcissist gave you the silent treatment, what events did they miss? Please kind of leave that in the comments below. Our community would love to hear about how you handled that situation. So do leave those comments for us. We appreciate it. So why do narcissists do this? We've talked a little bit about that, but the biggest thing is that, one, they want to control you, as I've stated before. But the other part of it is that narcissists generally, on the whole, are not emotionally mature. It's kind of like being in a relationship with a 5-year-old who doesn't have any capacity to rationalize, negotiate, or to talk about anything of importance emotionally. They are, I would say, arrested development is the phrase that I like to use. And so part of it is they just don't know how to be in relationships. The other part is they get that sense of control, as I've already stated. Part of it is also that they love to teach lessons. So like if you've done something that most people wouldn't even think is a problem, narcissists think everything is a problem that you do in a relationship that doesn't involve complying with their every whim and making sure everything is about them. So anything outside of that, you're doing wrong. So they will use the silent treatment to teach you a lesson. And it gets really old really quick, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show you the longer the silent treatment, the bigger the slight that they perceive you've done against them, so that you'll be taught not to ever do it again. That's part of their deal. Another reason that they do this is that they are really not trying to hold themselves accountable. They are not going to take accountability for anything that they do in the relationship. So don't hold your breath. They are not trying to take that kind of accountability. They're unable to do that. So they use the silent treatment to avoid focusing on them. They're going to focus on you. If they know that they've got you spinning around trying to figure out why you're getting the silent treatment, then you're not focused on what they did to you. And so it can be very grueling to be in a relationship like this. Because they're like children in relationships, the silent treatment also is in a way avoiding dealing with their own childlike responses. And so I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by that. So years ago, I was going on a work trip, and I used to go on work trips, I don't know, for maybe 4 or 5 days at a time. And they would be like every other month. So, not, I guess maybe that's more frequent than maybe some of you go on work trips, but I didn't think it was that frequent. It's like every other month for, 3, 4, 5 days. And my ex partner also went out of town, but his trips oftentimes were international. Mine were domestic, just to another state. And one time I had a combined trip where it was 10 days, which is the longest I had ever been on a work trip during this period of time. And it was a two-state deal, and so it was a combined trip of like 10 days. And leading up to that 10 days, there was a lot of fighting between us. And then there was the silent treatment. And then the whole time I was gone, we had basically no interaction. I couldn't figure out what was going on. He wasn't responding to my text messages. And the night before I was supposed to come back home, I was talking to the kids on FaceTime, or I forget which app we were using. I don't think it was FaceTime at that time. I don't remember. Whatever it was a video chat. And I remember saying, put dad on the phone. And so he got in the FaceTime for like 30 seconds, long enough to say the most hateful and demeaning thing to me he could in front of the kids. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, you haven't spoken to me in like 10 days. And when you get on the phone, you say the most horrible thing to me. And I could not figure out what was going on. And then years later, I kind of put it all together, what that was all about. One is he didn't want to be told what to do. He didn't want to be on the phone with me. And because the kids forced him, he was going to make sure that that never happened again. That I wouldn't risk doing that again. But then I realized what the pattern was, which was anytime I went out of town, I looked back and it was like, we were always fighting up until I went. And then then I got the silent treatment. And then on the way home, and then on my return home, there was a silent treatment, a little bit more emotional abuse. And it was like a pattern. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But that's how the silent treatment used to show up for me. It would happen many times in other areas, but that was one big one, was when I would go out of town. In going out of town, that pattern that I saw, I tried to figure out what that was. And I think, now I kind of know. I mean, I'm not in his head, but I kind of put it all together based on the behaviors and the patterns, was that when I would go out of town, it forced him into a supportive role of taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, kind of manning the fort. And that meant that it wasn't all about him. It meant he was supporting me in my career. And I think that he had a problem with that. It was okay that he took international trips, as I stated earlier, for 2 weeks, and I held down the fort. But when the roles were reversed, it was not okay, because that meant he wasn't the center of attention. He wasn't the one doing the leaving, I guess. And it dawned on me, like, that's the problem. He's not going to be in a supportive role of any sort. And if you think about it, that response is emotionally immature, to not be okay with one spouse going, but that spouse is able to go out of town without any problem and expects the support on one end, but not to have it be the other way. But remember how I said earlier that they have emotionally immature responses to things. So he couldn't come out and say, I don't think that you should do this because of X, Y, and Z, because then that wouldn't make sense given the fact that I do it for him. So he's not going to be okay to even voice that because it's emotionally immature. So the silent treatment does a lot of things. It hides up a lot of their emotional responses, not taking accountability, punishing you. It does a lot for them. So I wanted to give you 3 strategies that you can use to kind of let that silent treatment roll off your back, not let it negatively impact your life, and let them sit and stew with their own feelings. Don't feed that monster, and the monster being the silent treatment. So one, I kind of alluded to it just a bit ago, which is to look for patterns. Try to figure out if there's a pattern around when you get the silent treatment. Because if you know that there's going to be a pattern, maybe it's, maybe you play a sport, or maybe you volunteer somewhere on a regular basis, and that forces the narcissist into a supportive role, or, forces them to have emotions they don't want to have, then you can better plan. And you can also go, yep, the silent treatment's coming. It's like Tuesday. I know I have a game Thursday. I know the silent treatment's going to start tonight. Then you can kind of make fun of it and laugh at it, actually. So, number one, look for any patterns. And I would encourage you to kind of write down this stuff in a journal so you can actually see it and see if it is to the day, or to the hour when you know that the silent treatment's going to start. Have fun with it, but document it. This second strategy I want to tell you about is to do a lot of self talk, a lot of positive self talk. So, one way that this kind of might show up is like you can say, the silent treatment's coming on Tuesday. I know it's coming and I'm going to be okay regardless. I'm going to let that person do whatever they need to do and I'm still going to be okay. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to breathe deeply. I'm not going to have anxiety. I know it's coming. I'm prepared for it. And just keep saying, this is not about me. This is about him or her. And I'm not going to let it bother me. Just continuously do that self-talk and don't take it in. Don't blame yourself. Don't get involved in all of the drama that's going to surround the silent treatment. Use that energy and do a lot of positive self-talk instead. It really does work. The third strategy I wanted to kind of offer, which is kind of a fun one, if you know that there's a pattern of when the silent treatment comes, start planning around it and start planning some fun activities during that silent treatment. I actually started to count the silent treatment as a blessing because when you're with a narcissist, everything is about them. In my experience, everything is about the narcissist. It's their activities that the family goes to. It's, all about the narcissist. So during the silent treatment, it doesn't have to be. It can be about you, all about you. So find things and activities to do that make it all about you during those times. So listen, if you're needing that time, kind of bring on the silent treatment a little bit earlier. I'm just being funny right now, but I used to count those silent treatments at some point as a blessing to me because it meant I didn't have to deal with him. It meant I had time to myself, and it meant that I could regroup and just reset and make life about me during that time. So I started to enjoy the silent treatment after a while. And I'm going to link a video that I did on self-care. I'm going to link that in the cards above and in the description below. Hopefully you can find some tips and strategies in that might be helpful to you during that time when he or she is giving you the silent treatment. So I'll link that above. And as always, if you have comments or suggestions on how you get through the silent treatment, please do leave it in the comments below. Our community would love to hear about it. And I hope you found this video helpful in learning about how to navigate the silent treatment with a narcissist and, trying to understand why they do it and what they get out of it and the strategies that I offered. I hope they're helpful to you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.